Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of this radical feminist book, and it's been sometimes at moments difficult to read because of the vitriol she has for heterosexuality and religious people. So let us continue, and may Allah make it beneficial so that we can come up with sound rebuttals and solutions to what she says. Let's begin. Bismillah. Our romantic gendered scripts affect the stories we tell, the art we make, and the worlds we build in fiction and in the flesh. And when we repeat over and over again the message that women are only valuable in relationship to men, that women are most lovable when they don't know their own worth, we send a message. Okay, so most lovable when they don't know her own worth. In Islam, I believe you have your wali, right? He can help you to, and your mom, to set your dowry. And this is not saying that you should have a super high one, but rather just the fact that a dowry exists can show you some value. However, I understand there's a movement where like $1 dowry, that's kind of odd, but your worth, your wali, inshallah, and your parents, they see it, and they're gonna try to help you, inshallah, to find a partner that is suitable for you and is worth your time. A lot of women can overestimate their worth, I'd argue. I honestly think some really go above and beyond what they're actually worth because they don't have humility or humbleness, and they don't see the pool of options is shrinking, and that sometimes you will have to settle, and you may dislike a thing about him, but there's other good qualities, right? Like, let's say he has finances, but he's chubby. He can lose weight. But if you get a guy who's in shape, but he doesn't like to work, what are you attaching your worth to? Like, oh, I need a guy who looks like this and has this type of money. Well, maybe you can't get that handsome of a guy, but you can certainly get a guy with money. Or at least a guy who's willing to work hard to provide, right? So your worth, how you measure it, does him buying you a Chanel bag mean you're worth a lot? Or does him working hard every day, not using drugs, not partying, and coming home to you and the children show you your worth? Do you see what I'm saying? What do we call worth? Think about it. We send a message. It's a damaging message in its own way, as the attitude that women in some cultural circles are only valuable if they are young, hot, and uncomplaining. Okay, now I understand the test and trial Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us women with losing our sexual allure, because it's a survival tool. You're pretty, the enemy conquest comes in, he sees you're attractive, he may spare you, you survive. Women, when they're scared, they can use their sex appeal to manipulate an evil man. There's a lot of examples of that in fiction and in real life. The king is crazy, but you're pretty and can manipulate him with your looks and survive. When you're older, you have to navigate men differently. You need to have a different type of utility. I think if you're wise and you provide service in terms of tending to children with wisdom and education, I think I hope, at least, that there will be men who will be willing to protect you. For me, I think, hey, if we go to war, this country fails, if I'm an old lady, I will know a lot about religion and philosophy and history, and I can cook, so let me live. You know, like if I gotta go to the gulag, at least let me be the cook, you know? Like, if I lived back in ancient times, and a guy with a sword is coming, I'm going to take you out, I'd be like, wait. Have you ever tried this pastry? And he's like, what? I'm like, wait. I can cook really good, okay? Have you ever tried these type of beans? Hey. You know? But there's a quote from Cersei Lannister. I'm butchering it, but she's with Sansa and Stannis is attacking King's Landing. And she's talking about the weapon between her legs. And she says to her, like, if it was anyone but Stannis, you know, she would use that. But she's not gonna be, she would have a better chance of seducing his horse than him. So she points out how she can't use that female tactic. Whereas she was able to use it slightly with Euron Greyjoy to an extent. And so she obviously wasn't young, as the Queen of Thorns pointed out when Tywin wanted her to marry the pillow biter Loras Tyrell. You know, it's like the Queen of Thorns was saying her change is going to be upon her and she might not be able to have children, so it's not a good match because we're throwing that rose into the dust, she's argued, right? So even in fiction, we see it is true that when the women, we will have different tools at our disposal depending on our age. But when you're young and beautiful, that's your survival tool. You know, that's just how it is. Now, your value is gonna change. But if a man wants to start a family, and he, like, okay, if you only can do monogamy, the man, a 28-year-old man, he's looking around. Okay, 18-year-old woman, no kids, or 33-year-old with 3 kids. You want to start a family, you don't have too many finances, right? I'm not saying he can't do it, but that's why polygamy makes so much sense. Because a man can be 50 and he can have and if he has the means and the spiritual fortitude, he can tend to women better, even though they maybe are 34, 35, and he can still have his 21-year-old, right? So I don't think it's fair to knock men for wanting an attractive young non-bitching woman. I had to learn. I'm very stoic. I'm very analytical, and I'm very inquisitive. I had to learn. You have to learn people's thresholds, their boundaries. Like, I can talk and talk and talk and talk, and if you have, like with my husband, the attention span is more short. Like, if I need something, I have to get exactly to the point. Like, oh, I need this store, I need this, and that. But if I say, so I was noticing that I've been using a lot of paper towels more, and see, I also take them with me on a walk, and we're running out more. So I was thinking to myself as I was walking that we're gonna need more paper towels to go to the picnics, and can you go to Costco and get more? Like, I try to explain myself to get to my conclusion, but sometimes you gotta get right to the conclusion. And then if he asks more, elaborate. It's really a hard dance. But I think a lot of husbands talk about that. And when it turns into complaining, you have to be like, what's this person's threshold for nagging and complaining? And do they see everything as bitching? Then that's ridiculous. But are you going too far? You have to space out your complaints sometimes. If he does something you don't like, You can mention it one day, rub his shoulders, mention it, or when he's in a good mood, mention it. Don't tell him right when he walks in the door. That doesn't work out. Like, he hasn't even taken his belt off and anything, and you're already going at him, right? And you want to look, I think it's best you look nice, fresh from the shower. You don't look all gruffy. I think when you look a little bit like spray some perfume, you look a little cute, and then you tell your husband something that you're concerned about, they receive it better. But if you look like a mess and you're and you come at them with heat, you have to watch out for that. So it's not that you never complain, it's just the way in which you approach the problem. And your husband, you're gonna have to see his personality, and hopefully he'll be mindful and see your personality. But you're gonna age, and the sweetness of the rose fades as it dries. It's just the way it goes. That's just our test and trial on this earth. You can't fight it. You can't push men into having a fetish for grannies. It's just not the way it works. That's why respecting your elder culture has to happen. Because when you get older and you don't have sex appeal, men change towards how they see you. And women do the same, in a sense, when if a guy is fat versus when a guy is really in shape, her tolerance level for his attitude is obviously different. And women will also entertain more shenanigans from a man with money than a man without money. And so we have to look at our own behaviors. And I understand when a woman just is constantly angry, she has to ask herself, why didn't I choose someone with better compatibility? How do I make this relationship more harmonious? How can I salvage this relationship to the point where I'm not constantly in a negative state of mind? How can I let the stress out of my chest without dumping it on him and making us more divided? It's quite difficult, but it takes a lot of self-reflection. So, you're not valuable just because you never complain, as she's phrasing it. Rather, if you're only bitchy and you don't have that sweetness to you sometimes, you're gonna go overboard. You have to watch out. Now, some men do like mean girls, but they are really attractive. And I've seen this myself. I had a friend years ago in high school. She was very pretty. Dated a popular guy. She would literally smack him, pull his hair. She was just very catty. And she's like, oh, you're such an idiot. She would be very mean, and I'd be like, dang, man. And his name was Chase, and I'm not really attracted to white boys, but he was a popular kid, kind of attractive to people who like white guys, and blonde hair, blue eyes, and he allowed it, which was kind of shocking. Yeah, I was like, he didn't say anything, but she was very attractive. So if you are got the body that isn't on point, you being mean isn't gonna be as tolerated. I know that can make some people mad, but I think if you just start paying attention, even if you're justified, if you are overweight, you ain't looking fly, and you're nagging at your husband, he's not gonna receive it the same as if you were a vivacious, on point woman. I guess that's just the way it is. We do this even at our jobs. A customer comes in with money, who tips well and complains, you'll have more patience than the person who never tips and is only complaining all the time. Yeah, I think this is just natural human behavior. I don't think it's just about marriage. I think it's just about how we treat people. In fact, those two attitudes go hand in hand. The logic of misogyny that devalues women as active, independent thinkers and creators is the same logic. that measures a woman's worth by her youth and inexperience. Okay, measures a woman's youth and inexperience. Now there's the guys from Fresh and Fit. Fresh, he got a escort pregnant. He didn't use protection and he finished inside of her, showing his massive hypocrisy and his lack of accountability for his actions, right? He knew exactly what he was doing, and he paid her money, and she is experienced in that field, so he paid her money, lots of money, to do those deeds that he did. So some men do pay for experience, and then the Madonna whore complex of, you want your cake and eat it too. You want the freaky women, but you want to wife the pure girls, but you're making the freaky women, but think you deserve the pure girls with no aptitude, who you can just show them all what you want to do, but then paying for women to show you something you don't know, and watching content of women with vast amounts of experience. This is a difficulty for men that they struggle with, and you have more and more young men. Even in The Walking Dead, there was a dialogue between Shane and Rick, and Shane was bragging about when he was in high school, he slept with 30-year-olds. And you're like, huh, this is after Lori like told him sorry or whatever to Shane. And you can see that young men, when they're in high school, they do think it's interesting to pick women older than them as a sort of challenge. But 30-year-old men don't necessarily see 30-year-old women as a challenge. If you're a 40-year-old man, there's nothing wrong with you going for a 20-year-old. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, I myself pick someone older than me by 10 years. And I always like someone older than me. Some say that's daddy issues. I don't know. But age matters to men, and they should love you enough to stick by you when you age. And I think that's the wisdom of polygamy as well. Because a man can marry his high school sweetheart. They age together. She's aging. He's gonna do his duty to stick by her. They've had children. Her body's changed. It's okay. He has the money. He has the responsibility. He has the fortitude and the spiritualness. And he wants to take on a second wife who's 22 and his wife is 40. And then he later can get a third who's maybe 30. As long as he has the money, he does right by them. It's fine. But he shouldn't abandon his wife when she ages. That's what women fear. When you can only have one wife, and women are throwing themselves at your husband because he now has money and he's age 40. There's some Peter Schiff is somebody who looks good for his age. You know, not really attracted to white men, but he looks good for his age. Eats well, has a interesting personality. You can totally see him, like if you were 20 and you wanted to date 25, you know, you could go for someone like that. It's perfectly fine. And I think women who get mad at that is because they don't want to compete and you're insecure about aging. But it's okay that men want younger women. It's just that I'd argue Islam has the solution with polygamy where you're not going to abandon those women. Because Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, she was older than the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And all the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him, were different ages. Okay? And so, polygamy can help women to not be abandoned in their old age. And where men cannot live in sin. Instead of having a mistress, right? Look at the example of Catholic Tony Soprano. He had his wife, Carmela, who had the reputation and the honor. She's aging. And then he chose a young Svetlana, or is that the cousin? I forget. But he chose a beautiful young Russian woman as his mistress. He always chose young women as his mistress, except for like one who was like the mistress of his father or something. And you can see this where men will have mistresses who are younger, but they won't abandon their wife because they made an oath. Even though they also made an oath not to cheat. But you get my point. Polygamy makes sense for it, so you don't have to fear as much. You don't have to fear. You can be provided for. So it hurts. Okay, so if a woman is like a plump maiden, she's had 2 kids, she has a different energy about her. So if a man wants to have both the naive, young dove who's 20, and he also wants to have the 30-year-old who has 2 kids, because those have different energies. If he wants to have 2 wives, both like that, he's going to benefit differently from both of them, and they're both going to give him energy in a unique way when they get along and make his life peaceful and don't cause drama. So there's benefits to both. A woman who's seasoned, she knows how to deal with children, she's got more tolerance for no sleep, and then you have the funness of the one who's more naive and inquisitive and is like doting on you. Whereas the older woman, she's more independent. She's going to do the chores. She don't mind taking out the trash. She's more mature with her emotions. She's not going to fly off the handle because you did something very petty, usually, inshallah. So a man can benefit from both. And if you, let's say your husband is 50 and you're 50, he doesn't abandon you in your old age, but he gets a 3rd or 2nd wife who's 20, you don't need to feel weird about that, because men are different. And as long as he's not abandoning you, he's not neglecting you, and he marries her, and he does everything halal, hey, bills are paid, you're provided for, she's clean, she's not sleeping around, there's no diseases, what's the problem? But it's the jealousy and the envy. So Islam has a solution for this, feminists. Complaint. It's the Christians and the monogamists who are going to have this problem. And systematically exploits both. Powerful men make art, change the world, and get the girls. And the girls appreciate the art and wait patiently to be picked. You know, it would be an interesting experiment if there was more matchmaking. The classical matchmaking, where the women were together, and then, like, I don't know how that would work Islamically. What I'm trying to get at is if it was easier for women to be picked. You know, you can pursue the man you want, but you want to be picked, you know? You do. You don't want to be a pick-misha, but you... And I didn't mind hunting for my stag, but I understand some women are more... They're not as assertive as that. They're kind of more like waiting around, you know? So, it depends on what you do, but I wonder how matchmaking would be. Who knows? Maybe arranged marriages could help. That's the way it was supposed to work. Men don't approach as much, so it's harder for the women to get picked. They get called creepy. You know, it's very hard. I'm routinely surprised by the number of decent, progressive, empathetic men who are totally on board the gender equality train in theory, who nonetheless seem to believe that the way they behave in intimate relationships with women exist in a magical sphere separate from politics. So see here, this is how these even a progressive male feminist can't win. These women are never happy. It'll never be enough until you're wearing one of those leather dog masks and she's spanking you. You can't, once these women are just like obelisks, you're not gonna bend them. You just have to, they want you to bow. And then their sexual energy gets all messed up because they want a man, but then all of a sudden they want this progressive gender guy. It's very difficult for them. They don't want an Andrew Tate pervert, but they also don't want a guy like the streamer Destiny, who's just, you know, no biceps whatsoever. It's hard, but you know, you have to make dua. Feminist and Anti-Racist Men. Okay, Anti-Racist Men. So she's trying to play this as... Okay, Charleston White, he's a black guy who makes a lot of racist videos about white women and Asian men. Dr. Umar Johnson is a black supremacist who he doesn't believe in race mixing. So from her view, she thinks only white people can be racist. But when you look at it, people can be tribalistic, you know. And it's important to pick someone from your culture who you can get along with, or someone can be from a neighboring culture that's kind of similar. I think that's why Mexico and America, there's so many women marrying Latino men, because the cultures have always been so similar. You share a border, it's not that big of a deal. And there's so many Mexicans in America, so, you know. But you'll hear racial stereotype comedy jokes, but I don't blame people if they want to stay in their own race. I'm mixed race. My whole family is now mixed race. My children are mixed race. So that doesn't appeal to me. But a guy who's just saying how anti-racist he is comes across as phony, you know? Now, there's a balance, you know? Definitely a balance. You don't want to be a bigot, but you don't want to be an apologist. Like those self-hating white male liberals who whip themselves, and I've seen videos of them kissing black men's shoes and doing weird kind of stuff, and, you know, apologizing for slavery, but those white guys didn't own slaves. It's really strange. So you don't want that kind of weirdness, but you don't want someone who's just like, I dislike you simply because your shade of skin isn't the same as mine. Well, that's just absurd. Yeah, that's absurd. You know, new races will be born. New ethnicities will come about. You can't stop it, so I don't really see the point in clinging to that type of line. It's just absurd. Men who seem to think the way they treat women romantically has nothing to do with racism or sexism. Often these men are uncomplicated, decent to women they are not dating or married to. They want relationships of true equality and mutual humanity with dynamic, confident adult women. They want all the things they know they ought to want if they were the ethical men they know they want to be. Okay, I remember a TikTok video, maybe you remember it, it went viral, where a liberal feminist was complaining how there are no very masculine men in the liberal side of the sphere, as in, if you take the college jock Republican MAGA guy, some of them tend to be more on the masculine, traditional looking facial structures and the way they, you know, white boy summer type of vibe. You know, even in that anime cartoon Boondocks, there's a black guy who seems like a Republican good guy, but he's very polished. He's like a fraternity guy who obviously went to the Ivy League, and he has like class. So even them, they are like, he's dating a white woman, so they're confident, but there isn't really ever going to be this sort of true equality. I think what she's trying to say is that she wants more help with chores, because she wants to work. So she just wants help with the household chores and with child rearing, and she should just say that. But I remember my husband used to make a joke to me all the time. He still does it. Where I'm like, can you do this? Like, you know, can you lift the flower pots, you know? And he'll be like, we equal. You can do it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, we equal. We in America. But he says it with his Mexican accent. And I'd be like, I don't want to. You're the man. He's like, we equal. He does it sometimes to make me mad. But it is funny. Definitely funny. Because he'll do it at moments where I don't expect it. You know? or I'll ask for money. Like, can I have some money to go get this bread I want? And he'll be like, we equal, you can buy it. And I'm like, can I have some money? We equal. It's pretty funny. I do think that if you can joke around with your husband, it's pretty fun. But I don't think there can really be true equality. I mean, when she mentions humanity, obviously we see each other as humans, but we have gender roles. And I don't want to go to the DMV. I don't want to deal with the plumbing. If I don't have to, I won't. And that doesn't mean I want him to be machismo and be cruel and not help change a diaper while I'm making food. But it does mean that I want him to brutally defend our home if anyone tries to hurt us. But I will jump on the person's back and do my part. Do you see what I mean? You just have to see what works with your guy, pretty much. I think a lot of men are ethical. You just gotta look at the ethics of that culture, right? But human beings want all kinds of things they're not supposed to want. Human beings want status and simple adoration, and someone to fill the sucking hole in their self-esteem. They want to feel safe from the risk of rejection. They want to feel strong and important. They want to feel needed without really being known. Studies back up the observation that while many straight and bisexual men like the idea of being with an older, more successful, and more talented woman in theory and practice, the qualities most valued in a female partner are beauty, self-sacrifice, and the appearance of vulnerability. Okay, so older, more successful. Ooh. That can work. I mean, Khadija at the time was more successful because she had more money than the Prophet, peace be upon him. As success in sense of monetary gain, she was older. Their relationship worked. But vulnerability is interesting because you can't be vulnerable around someone who can't lead. Ooh, that's a real note right there. When you're a woman, you can't really feel safe if you know you have a guy who is lacking in some leadership qualities. You may love him, he may be a good dad, but you can't fully clock out and let him lead fully when you know he's the type to fall for a scam or a pyramid scheme or something ridiculous. You know, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. So, vulnerability usually comes with youth. You know, I'm more guarded, definitely more guarded and vigilant. So I ain't trying to be vulnerable because a baby deer is vulnerable, and then it's mauled to death by a grizzly bear. So you have to be very careful. Predators do enjoy vulnerability. Really depends. Self-sacrifice is important because you're going to have to do things in the relationship that are about someone else's feelings, not your own. And that's important for child rearing. You know, when you breastfeed, you're feeding that baby, you sacrifice going out. I used to, we had the time, so I knew the baby had to nurse at least every 3 hours. So, and then you got prayer times, you got school pickup times, cooking times, and so I'd be like, okay, I can't go out at this time because by the time I go there, by the time I come back, you know, it's just not gonna work. I'm gonna feel rushed. I'm gonna have to stay home, nest. It can be a little isolating, but I'm gonna sacrifice my desires for my baby because my baby needs me, and that's what you do as a mom. Just serve your baby. And beauty matters. You know, you want to eat good. Like I said, in pregnancy and when the child's, you know, a year, that's a difficult, a year old, that's a difficult time, you know. But you can still take a shower. You can still, obviously, trim your nails, shave your legs, shave your arms. shave your armpit hairs. The rules of Islam is that you are to pluck your pubic hair, so take care of your pubic area, you know, deodorant, make sure you're flossing, mouthwash, you know, be clean. Yeah, hello. So, you know, have some nice clean pajamas on, stuff like that. You can be pretty in those difficult years, and it'll work. Just show respect. I often made this case. If babies were ugly like little orcs in Lord of the Rings, it would be hard for the human species to survive. Babies are cute. They are adorable, and this makes us have mercy towards them. They cry and cry and cry because they're afraid of the world around them. It's hard to be a baby. Baby life is hard life. And yet when they smile, the twitchy smiles they do after they breastfeed, and then you look at them when they're just snuggling, you're like, oh, they're so precious. They literally made me so tired by waking me up in the night, but here they are, adorable and cute. The cuteness helps them to survive. Beauty helps your husband not to unleash his wrath on you. This is just the way I see it. Beauty and the Beast. You know, beauty can help that beast calm down, let me tell you. Now, there are some men who will still hit you or something when you're pretty, but I don't think they want to disfigure you. That's when you get into the very sinister ones, is when they want to disfigure your beauty. Well, guess what? Then you're not dealing with something wise, right? Those who want to destroy beauty can harm it, but encapsulating your beauty and revealing it only to your husband is wonderful, and that's his present, you know? Who doesn't want something beautiful? I mean, am I vain as a woman because I chose my husband when I first met him because he had the body of Hercules? Yes, maybe that's bad, but women, we literally do the same thing. Unless you're going for money. Like, if you're going for money, then that's a different ball game. I'm not part of that circle. But if you're going for like a guy who looks like Sam from Game of Thrones, Samuel Tarly, you know, alright, that's your thing. That's what you're going to do. But beauty matters to women as well. I mean, how many times do they say he has to be so tall? He has to have this perfectly trimmed beard. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Women like beauty as well. The only women who don't care too much about beauty, ironically, are the lesbians. Which is kind of funny. Well, there's different types. But the butch lesbians, they're not... They get their own style, but they're not trying to be Barbie dolls. And that's just the way it goes. Most people want to feel competent, important, and powerful. And for men, wrestling with the contradictions of modern masculinity, the impulse to treat sex and intimacy as itemizable sources to status is even more pronounced, because so few of the traditional ways that men are allowed to feel good about themselves are easily to come by, and more. Easy to come by. Let's see what she means. Some men might balk, and rightly so, at being told that they find independence and confidence, intelligence, and professional success unattractive in women. Okay, confidence in women? It depends on how you're expressing the confidence. I had to learn this as well. I was confident in my job, but it came off as sort of an aggressive assertiveness that rubbed people the wrong way because it lacked a sort of finesse to it. It was more abrasive, and I had to learn how to really rein that back and show confidence in a way that didn't ruffle feathers, which, as a female, I can see we have a different way in which we're supposed to show confidence. We're not supposed to be peacocks like men and be Conor McGregors, you know. Intelligence, I don't think men get mad at intelligence. It's just that when you become smug, I think, and are always like, with your glasses, like, so that's what you think? Oh my god, you're an idiot. Like, when you use your intelligence as a bludgeon, then it becomes kind of off-putting. Professional? I mean, there is a fetish for that in porn, but professionalism often relates to mannerisms and ethical behavior and the way in which you carry yourself, your demeanor. The funny part is you can act professional without being a professional. It's just called having manners and elegance, really. Success being unattractive to men and women? They don't care. I've heard a lot of them, they don't care exactly about your job title. However, the weird part is you get some dads who will ask the women, like, what do you do? And if she says, I want to be a stay-at-home wife, I'm a village girl, they might be like, oh, son, you must marry someone who has a PhD. There are some people who think you have to marry someone of equal education, So, I guess you'd have to argue, success in what? Success in your career, in accolades, in titles, credentialisms, your field of study, right? Like, what are you trying to master, and are you successful at it? Follow through, keeping your commitments. Like, let's say, the way I think some men might see it is, or at least I would tell my son, she wants to be better at cooking. Is she successful at that? That doesn't mean she needs to be a Michelin star chef at a fancy hotel and work, 50 hours a week. It can mean that she's mastered certain recipes on her own. That's success. You see what I mean? Let's say a girl wants to be a tailor, a seamstress. She may not have to work for some huge brand, but let's say she has a sewing machine at home and she's doing quite well with her own unique niche designs. I would call that success, even though she's not racking in so much money working for Prada. Do you see what I'm saying? So how you measure success is very important. Because what some women call success isn't. It's not success. Indeed, a lot of men loudly insist that they would love to be with a smart, witty, dynamic woman with her own money. So why then are most of all my smart, witty, straight, female friends either single or slogging through a succession of relationships with cruel, mediocre men because they feel they have no better options? Okay, witty. I love wit. If you want to check out the playlist I did of the Yorkshire wisdom, I love witticisms. Tyrion Lannister was one of my favorite characters for a while because sometimes he would seem witty. I had an oil painting of him on my wall, but an original oil painting. But after I converted to Islam, I had to get rid of that, so I got rid of it. But I do enjoy witticisms. You can be witty. It's just when it's not the right time, just knowing the moment when it's natural and organic, not when it's forced and condescending, when it doesn't seem like you're being a bitch. Because sometimes you can think you're being witty with what you're saying, but it's said at the wrong time, and it comes off as like a passive-aggressive insult or something like that. Or you're just being a contrarian or full of semantics, right? So, every woman is dynamic and has a level of intelligence, because you just don't want to be a docile donkey who's broke in the sense of if she had to work, she couldn't do nothing and she couldn't even do it well. Work ethic does matter to a degree. In case you have financial ruin and you have to go to a job. So there's a balance, If she has her own money, the rescue effect comes into play, I'd argue. Because once she has her own money and he doesn't really have to embrace her with money, how she's going to feel like the prize is going to change. It's harder to impress a woman who has all her own money and the gratitude comes in, because the arrogance of, like, if, like, when my husband brings me home an iced vanilla latte, or he buys me sushi sometimes, I'm thankful for that. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't need much. But if I had my own money, like a lot of money, it's almost like you would expect him to have to do something more than just that, because now when you are able to buy it, that action doesn't mean much. I don't know, it's almost like the more money you have, what you want from your man is gonna change, and it's gonna make him have to do a lot more work. If you look at some women who are immigrants that come from Thailand, and they marry like a boomer-aged white guy who has some money, those women leveled up because of where they were living, and they're grateful, and they're having fun with just going to the nail salon and going out to eat for brunch, getting a sundress and stuff like that. But if the woman who's working in the financial district, she's competing with men all day, and she wants someone who makes more money, now that guy, he has to work hard to impress her because she already has the treasure up. There's the Aladdin effect, where it's like Jasmine had everything and she chose a broke guy because of his personality. But how many women want the broke guy just for his personality? Because then she becomes it's a weird relationship. You have all this money, but you chose a guy who doesn't, and he could literally, like, this doesn't feel right. I don't know, man. That is something weird about that. Like cougars, like older women who marry young men, and they're paying for everything. It's just weird. I don't know. That's a tough one. Like Tommy Lauren and Megyn Kelly made posts about this. Exactly. So don't think that this feminist, what she said right here, is just relating to liberal women. There's right-wing conservative women who, Candace Owens, Tommy Lauren, Megyn Kelly, 3 conservative women whose men chose them because they were making money and they're pretty, but they are very independent, right? We don't know how their husbands feel, but we do know that you don't have to have a college degree in order to get a husband who admires you and wants to have intimacy with you and give you children, right? So think about that. A lot of the times you just have to be pretty, not be a cunt, be clean, cook some good food, and rejuvenate them, and know how to manage your temper, and don't go psycho. He argues with you, don't go dump all his clothes over the balcony. Basic stuff. It's not too hard. Really isn't. It's not too hard to have a way to please your partner. So we'll pause here, because it's a good place to pause. I hope you had some things to think about. She has some points, and other times, if you just take a step back and look at what she's saying and her perspective, you're like, I disagree with that. And so, think about your life, how you want your children to be, how you want your son to be, how things can get better. And it's not wrong that men want beauty, and it's not wrong that women want financial stability, because if women really were honest with themselves, I think very few would want to be working hard labor while pregnant, or to be working while pregnant. And if they could relax and be a kept woman, like a duchess, I think a lot more women would be happy with that. Doesn't mean you don't have something to do with yourself, but I don't think you'd want to be working in a sweatshop while pregnant. If your man can provide for you, that's great. And beauty is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's going to be taken away. You got to find something to do with yourself when you start aging. Don't fear it. Polygamy can work. For men not to abandon their women who sacrifice their body to give him children. But if he has to choose between the aging wife and the new wife, he has a struggle there. Like, if you force monogamy on society, and mistresses come. And then those women just take it anyways. They take the guma. It's just documented over and over and over and over in real life and in fiction. So you can't lecture men into not liking beauty. You can just encourage them to do it ethically, and for women to have patience, because they're gonna get huri alain in paradise, a whole new creation of female looking things. Like, they're going to have nice breasts, they're going to be beautiful, their skin's going to be different, they're a new creation just for men. Okay? And the wonderful thing is from what we can assume, ugliness isn't allowed in paradise. How do I put it? What I'm trying to say is, maybe you'll like the new way you look in paradise, and it's for eternity, so if you don't like being old and ugly, there's a high chance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't let you be old and ugly in paradise. I'm just saying. So have hope. It's a test. Beauty is a test. You only get it for a short time. You know? Think about it. Think about it. Lot to dissect in this reading. Take care, family. If you like to support my work and read more things that I write, you can do so on my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.